I'm trying to use the bottom of my glasses, which is why you see this view in the
glare.
That's what Rachel said.
All right, Commission President Rachel L. Smith, we are ready to begin whenever you are.
Right. Today is December 2nd, 2020. It is now 7:35 p.m. We're starting the regular meeting of the City Commission. We will have an executive session immediately following this regular meeting of the City Commission. And with that, Ms. Riggs, will you call the roll?
Commissioner Rocky Smith,
Here.
Commissioner Denise McGriff,
Present.
Commissioner Frank O'Donnell,
Here.
and Commission President Rachel L. Smith.
Here. And will join me in the flag salute.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, so the first item of business is the commission appointments. Ms. Riggs, did you have anything that you wanted to say? Okay. So I appreciate everybody for filling out the Excel spreadsheet that was sent out and filling it out in the last 24 hours. So I think we'll just go through the list, and there definitely are a couple of changes, and there are a couple that I will address probably as we go through. Our goal at this point in time, because we have some commission shifts that will happen, vacancies, or, we have a vacancy. And so I'm trying to cover committees that Mayor Holliday had been assigned on. That was kind of the top priority. And then at the same time, these are new committees, at least for the time being until the full commission gets set, which will probably be April timeframe, and we can revisit moving some committee assignments around at that time. So for now, I'll just go through, and I guess if anybody has any major objections.
Are we flipping coins?
No, we're not. So Beaver Creek Employment Area Blue Ribbon Committee, Commissioner O'Donnell, that's your committee. You've had it. I know nobody volunteered for that one, but I would like for you to stay on that committee since you're familiar with it. Brownfield Grant Committee, that was Mayor Dan Holliday. That's going to be Frank O'Donnell, Commissioner O'Donnell. The Citizen Involvement Committee is going to be Commissioner Denise McGriff. The Clackamas Coordinating Committee, it was previously Mayor Dan Holliday and I was the alternate, so I had been attending. So I'm going to become the appointed person for C4. C4, that Clackamas Coordinating Committee, also has a subcommittee. I had been serving on that. I will continue on that. So if anybody is interested in being an alternate for C4, you can let me know. But for right now, I'll manage both of those Clackamas County coordinating meetings. I've been attending both of them anyway already. Clackamas Heritage Partners will continue to be Commissioner Rocky Smith. Downtown Oregon City Association is Commissioner McGriff. The Metro Policy Advisory Committee will remain as is. I'm the appointed person, and then Commissioner Denise McGriff is the alternate.
And I thank you for not missing any of those. Seriously.
The Governor's Willamette Falls Locks Commission. City Manager Tony Conkle and I had a conversation about this. So this position is actually appointed by the governor. At this point in time, I also talked with Mayor Axelrod this afternoon, who is on the Willamette Falls Locks Commission. So at this point in time, I am going to attend or plan on attending as an interim until we get the mayor position. Whoever is elected, that position at that time, we can approach the governor's office to ask for a new appointment. But because things are in flux, I'm just going to participate from the sidelines and listen in to any meetings that they have That was kind of our plan as an interim for the next few months. The Oregon City Tourism Stakeholders Group, that will continue to be Commissioners Denise McGriff and Rocky Smith. South Fork Water Board. This one everybody was interested in when everybody filled out the Excel spreadsheet. At this point in time, because the South Fork Water District, the chair and vice chair are the mayors of the two cities of Oregon City and Westland. As I mentioned earlier, I talked to Mayor Russ Axelrod about South Fork Water Board this afternoon. At this point in time, I know there's lots of interest on this. I'm going to attend, as my position is supposed to be backfilling for the mayor. And I will start some coordination. I actually have text messages on my phone of trying to coordinate and just talk about the transition and moving forward with South Fork Water Board from the chair perspective of a plan of what we're going to do in the new year. I am fine with leaving Commissioner Frank O'Donnell and Rocky Smith on South Fork Water Board unless either one of you do not want to be on it.
No, I'd like to stay.
You'd like to stay?
See, nobody wants to fight over what Mr. Parno. That's,
Right.
you know, let's get down to the nitty gritty here.
Commissioner
I'd
O'Donnell?
like to stay, but I'd like to stay for instance of continuity. There's a lot going on,
Right.
especially in water rights and such. Yeah,
Yes.
I'd like to stay.
And you know, in all transparency, I need both of you two to kind of back me. I'm filling in this role as position, and to try to help in the transition. And we'll be talking to, I think we're going to have a meeting between Mayor Axelrod and myself and John Collins, maybe including Wyatt, but sometime in the next couple of weeks. Like I said, we touched base this afternoon, and so we're gonna start planning on that. Willamette Falls and Landings Heritage Commission, that will continue to be Commissioner Denise McGriff. There's currently not an alternate, so if anybody would like to be an alternate.
Our meetings are not that strenuous, so we really haven't needed one.
You haven't needed one?
Yeah.
That's great. Willamette Falls Legacy Project Liaison, I'm going to fill in for, replace Mayor Holliday, on that.
Mayor Holliday,
Excuse me?
former Mayor Holliday.
Former Mayor Holliday, yes, excuse me. And Commissioner Frank O'Donnell will remain on Willamette Falls Legacy Project. The OC 2040 Project Advisory Team, Commissioner Denise McGriff is going to replace former Mayor Dan Holliday. There is a second position on this advisory team. No one else had mentioned it on the Excel spreadsheet that was provided.
It's so exciting. That's why they all don't want to do it.
I do think I think we're supposed to have 2 members on this advisory team.
When does that meet?
Laura?
Ms.
could
Turway, are you on the phone, on the Zoom?
Yes, thank you. We meet every month at most, generally a little bit more time between that.
It says the
I mean,
second,
time,
the second Wednesday at 7 p.m.
7.
I have you down actually as I think you would be a great fit for it if you.
Yeah,
If
I
you
mean,
could
as long
do
as
it
it's
in-
in the evening, I could probably do that.
Okay, so Commissioner Smith, why don't we put you down as the second member for OC 2040? Then Clackamas Water Environment Services, that's Commissioner Rocky Smith with Commissioner McGriff as the alternate.
I said I would assist Commissioner Smith and that we could double team them however we need to do, whatever we need to do.
Okay, you guys can coordinate that offline.
Yes.
I-205 Tolling Diversion Committee. So this is a
This
is a brand new one.
Yeah, tolling diversions.
Yeah. And the notes on this say it was just started in 2020 by Clackamas County. It's a group of agencies essentially to respond to ODOT as one voice regarding the I-205 tolling project. So I thought I should explain, there was a lot of interest by the commission on this one. I put my name down to attend mainly because this for a couple of reasons. One, the I-205 project is a hot topic of conversation
Yes.
in Clackamas County Coordinating Committee. We already have coordination there. It's talked about in our C4 subcommittee meeting, and I also have an additional group that is meeting with Representative Mark Meep, Representative Rachel Prusak, and in coordination with Representative Christine Drazen on the legislative front of working on how we can influence the legislature with that voice so I'm taking the voices from what I hear from here. I'm taking voices from the input that I hear from the Clackamas County Coordinating, and I'm trying to, there's a lot of the same voices that are at that table trying to influence at the legislative session, at the legislative level with the representatives that I've mentioned. So for all of those reasons, I put myself down. Just because I'm in all those conversations, just because I think it would be easier.
I think the reason we all signed up for it is because we're all concerned about it.
Yeah.
So I think as long as we're conveying, the same interest, and so that's not necessarily a group that's under ODOT. This is a group specifically to.
Yeah.
Okay, well, that's even
Yes.
more important then, yeah.
Yeah, to
Great.
provide input.
I
Perfect.
think so far, we're all speaking kind of with one voice on that
Yeah,
particular
I think
topic.
that's
I think
good.
we are too, and I think the communities, what I've seen so far is all the communities around the I-205 project, so Gladstone, Westland, Oregon City, and Clackamas
that's
County
good.
has been a super supportive. Commissioner Paul Savas is heavy into transportation, and he has totally carried that message as well. So there's definitely a unified message there about the I-205 project. And then if I had an alternate, Commissioner O'Donnell, it didn't ask for an alternate, but Commissioner O'Donnell, I was going to put you down as an alternate for that meeting, the I-205 diversion. I thought you'd do a good job representing.
He's
Oregon
still
City on that
laughing,
one.
that's good.
But I'm planning to attend, but just in case,
With my gracious, approach to things, yes, okay.
Right,
Bring
that's
a
why
big
I thought
stick.
you'd be perfect. We need to make sure our voice is heard, so.
Bring a stick.
I think we're doing good cop, bad cop, and I know which one I am.
All right, then I have the Oregon City Westland Pedestrian and Bicycle Bridge Project. That's Commissioner Denise McGriff.
That was like, oh my God. I saw that.
Did I miss any, Ms. Riggs? Okay, I think we have them all.
Good.
And I think we're done with that. Perfect. All right, so moving on, do we have any citizen comments for this evening?
We do not have any citizen comments at this time.
Okay. So moving on to item number 5, the adoption of the agenda. There's a really long list of items in the consent agenda. So everyone look over the consent agenda. Is there any item you want to pull from the consent agenda for discussion?
Yes,
put-
please.
Okay.
Yes, I'd like to pull 8H.
Okay. And then anything else? I'll give you all a minute because there's a long list.
Yeah.
I did discover some of these consulting firms have the same name. And when I saw 8G and I said, 3J, isn't that a different group? So when I opened it up and looked at it, it was a different 3J group. Somebody else has a similar name. I was somewhat confused.
Commissioner O'Donnell, do you have anything to pull?
No, I do not, thank you.
Okay, so with that, I do not have anything to pull either. So why don't we put 8H in the general business after 7B as the update to the guidelines for transportation impact analysis. All right, so do we have an adoption of this revised agenda?
I would so move.
We don't have to.
It's just
Yeah,
consensus,
we're good.
yeah.
We're good.
Okay, we're good then.
I take that back.
All right, so our next item is public hearing. Establishing a temporary 30 miles per hour speed limit on the new Myers Road extension. Is that Mr. Lewis?
While we're waiting for Mr. Lewis, I want to say something for the record. Hello,
Okay.
Bob.
Okay, Mr. Lewis. Are you ready?
Yeah, sorry. Good evening, commissioners. So I'm going to keep this short unless you've got big questions. We're about to complete the Myers Road Street extension. So hopefully that feels like good news to all of you.
Yes.
Feels real good to us. We anticipate that happening middle of December. When we do open it, we had intended for that to be a state certified speed zone. State has a backlog of speed zone study work, and they're just simply not going to get to it. There is some provisions in the ORS that allows us to set a temporary speed zone, and ODOT is suggesting we go that route, and so it requires an ordinance. It would be a 30 mile per hour speed zone. We think that's appropriate for the type of facility that Myers Road is. And so there's a pretty detailed report that staff have completed. It lists some criteria that helped us establish why we think it should be 30 miles per hour. And we've also worked with our local police enforcement to get some consensus on whether or not they agree that is appropriate. And so we're asking you for an emergency tonight because we hope to open that on the 16th. I think your next commission meeting is on the 16th. If we don't consider this an emergency, it would require a second meeting and it would delay opening. And so that's why we're asking for the ordinance to be considered. It includes the emergency status. So with that, if you have any questions, happy to answer them.
Mr. Kabizman?
Thank you. I just echo what John said about the emergency, and also note that to make it effective, it's also requested that the commission have both readings tonight, which is not the typical situation. Yes, first and second reading this evening. So.
Mr. Lewis?
Commissioner McGriff?
Mr. Lewis, this is sort of related to this. I've actually two questions, and I'll start with the first one. When we were originally envisioning this street, was there any discussion at all about it being more like a boulevard? And when I say boulevard, maybe having like trees down the center of it. And the reason I'm asking this is that over the last couple of days, I've had a lot of comments sent to me regarding the speed on Myers Road that currently exists. And since I have been frequenting a grocery store establishment in that area, I also have observed that myself, that it's nice and wide and people just go kind of like bats out of hell on that. So, I mean, I'm supporting your 30 mile an hour request, but one of the questions I got from a member of the public at Winco was, why didn't we consider making it a boulevard to help slow traffic down? And I said, I don't know.
My original recollection was we looked at Myers Road, and this used to be actually 35 miles an hour. But I think through the design process, they made the decision to reduce it. Now it is a minor arterial, so the intent is to move traffic efficiently. There is some medians on Myers Road. My recollect is there may be a few trees, but not many. A lot of the medians are actually under the power line, so there are some limitations there. But we are planting a lot of trees on the project, so don't get me wrong there. But we've got landscape medians, but they're not There's not a lot of that. But the other element of Myers Road that you're talking about, so I would think of it as west of 213, is an area that we want to focus on in terms of speed limits. We've got a couple of speed studies out, or requests for speed studies out right now. One of them being Holcomb Boulevard, and we've been really struggling to get that accomplished. Well, it's not us that's struggling, it's ODOT does those. So they're struggling to finish those, they're backlogged. Myers Road's not far off. Glen Oak Road is still posted 35 miles an hour. We'd like to pursue Glen Oak Road as soon as possible as well. We talked to the neighborhood about Glen Oak Road and the speeds along that boulevard, and the desire to see that lower. I mean, we're generally seeing neighborhoods, the expectation or the desire across the city is for lower speed limits. So we're kind of moving in that direction. We think we hear that from the commission as well. So I hear you with regard to the Myers Road, the existing section of Myers Road. We should see a slower speed limit on that roadway, and we think we can support that. We think ODOT will support that, especially with the new legislation that's out that gives us a little more authority to. It used to be that ODOT set speed limits based on the 85th percentile, and they've moved to 50th percentile, which is average, basically the average speed as opposed to 85th percentile. So I think we're going to make progress on those, and Myers Road west of 213 is a priority.
Is there any chance that we can just keep that permanent regardless of what ODOT says? I mean, do we really have to have them do a speed study on it? Could we just say we want it to be 30 and leave it that way?
Well, we can definitely share our opinion, and we will. I mean, I think the report that we've submitted, I know that needs to go to ODOT as well to support our decision, but you know, we're not going to have a lot of trouble defending that. And I think the new legislation with regard to speed limit and establishing speed limit gives the city a lot more authority to, you know, if they land on 35, we've definitely got a 5 mile an hour ability to post it 5 miles an hour less, and we may have more influence over the ODOT recommendation on that.
Well, I'm just trying to lighten.
It is I mean, Myers Road is a facility that we're trying to emphasize. I mean, we've got a school, a college, a park. We've got multifamily along there, so that's why we went with the buffered bike lanes. It does feel like a wider boulevard, but we're also trying to accommodate all modes on that facility. So you're correct, Commissioner McGriff, that you know, safe travel along that roadway is very important to the city.
Well, you know, John, I always want to try to help ODOT reduce their workload. So, you know, if we can get off their list, that would be, you know, that's to, you know, to our benefit to help them out there.
All right,
We'll
any
keep working
other,
on that.
any other questions for?
Do we
Mr.
need
Lewis?
to do the first and second
Yes.
reading separately? Okay.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yes.
so Mr. Kabizon, I'm going to open the public hearing. Can we do first and second reading together, or they have to be separate?
Separate, I think.
We have to do them separately.
We usually in two separate readings.
Okay.
All right,
So let her
so
open the public hearing.
I'm going to open the public hearing. No comments?
Nope, let's close the public hearing.
Going to close the public hearing.
I'd like to
Procedure.
approve the first reading of ordinance number 20-1011, establishing a temporary 30 mile per hour speed on New Myers Road and declaring an emergency.
Second.
Ms. Riggs? Oh, wait,
Ordinance
Mr. Kabizman.
Ordinance number 20-1011, an ordinance of the City of Oregon City establishing a temporary 30 mile per hour speed limit on the new Myers Road extension, High School Avenue to Highway 213, and declaring an emergency.
Ms. Riggs?
Commissioner Rocky Smith,
Aye.
Commissioner Denise McGriff,
Aye.
Commissioner Frank O'Donnell,
Aye.
Commission President Rachel L. Smith.
Aye. All right,
Move to approve second reading of ordinance number 20-1011, establishing a temporary 30 mile per hour speed limit on Myers Road and declaring an emergency.
Second.
Mr. Kabizman?
Ordinance number 20-1011, an ordinance of the City of Oregon City establishing a temporary 30-mile-per-hour speed limit on the new Myers Road extension, High School Avenue to Highway 213, and declaring an emergency.
Commissioner Rocky Smith,
Aye.
Commissioner Denise McGriff,
Aye.
Commissioner Frank O'Donnell,
Aye.
Commission President Rachel L. Smith.
Aye. All right, so we're going to move on to the next item, which is item 6B. It's also a public hearing for the conservation easement along Myers Road. Ms. Turway?
Thank you very much. I am pleased to introduce Kelly Reed, planner with the city.
Hi, commissioners. Thank you, Kelly Reed and the Community Development Department. This item is a conservation easement that is being proposed to be granted for the benefit of the city. This will fulfill the obligations of the property owner pursuant to our Natural Resource Overlay District chapter. This property is a campus industrial zone property along the new Myers Road extension that you were just talking about. And the preliminary partition of that land with Myers Road being the dividing line has been approved. And one of the items that needs to be completed before that final partition can be done is this conservation easement, and then the property can be sold and developed. There's more information in the staff report, and I'm just going to keep it at that and answer any questions if you have any.
Thank you, Ms. Reed. I will say that I had an email communication with Ms. Turway, and I'm not sure that if it got sent out, but the map for Exhibit A, I believe. Where's the exhibit?
It's
Is it
revised
Exhibit
and
I?
then-
It's been revised to make it more clear exactly where the easement area. I think the first version, it wasn't clear to me at all where the actual easement was. So, yeah, so you should see it in the revised map in the materials. Are there any questions for Ms. Reed or Ms. Turway? Commissioner McGriff?
Yes, Kelly, when the property is partitioned, what is going to be the status of this? Is it going to be planted? Is it going to be, is it going to be left as it is? How will this be protected, so to speak?
Well, it will be protected pursuant to the Natural Resource Overlay District, which only allows native plants. There actually hasn't been any proposal to modify it in any way. And the construction that's being proposed on the property is staying pretty far away from that area completely. So because of the process that this went through, because they're not touching or disturbing the area, there's no mitigation or restoration that needs to occur. And so it's not the traditional mitigation planting that gets monitored and, there's a certain number of native plants that need to be planted. I think it's simply going to keep the existing vegetated condition that it's in.
Will it be fenced in any way or delineated in any way so that someone wandering onto the property, if they should do that, knows that that's an area that's not to be disturbed? Or I'm just trying to understand. I understood the legal document in terms of the easement itself, but I'm not understanding how the practical application will be applied to the property. So that's what I'm kind of getting at.
Yeah, I think the property owner or representatives of the property owner are attending virtually, and so they might be able to speak to how they're going to delineate that or mark that, if at all.
Hi, this is Sue Anderson with JLL. I am a project manager, owner's rep for Advantis, and we do have representative from Advantis, Kelly Myers, on the call as well. And we're not far enough along in the design and planning to give you details on how we might delineate that, but that is something we have talked about with the design team, having some, not too obtrusive way to delineate that. And I believe the the owner or the future owner does want to have some way for them to be able to know where that boundary is as well.
Before we continue, why don't we have us open the
Yeah.
public hearing so we can follow the
Yeah,
process.
the questioning moved to actually applicant testimony. So I'm going to open the public hearing for this item. Are there any additional questions for the applicant? Commissioner McGriff?
No, if she basically said that they're still working on that, and I guess my next question would be, pending some future development, I assume that's gonna close the loop with the staff, and so they'll know what's going on, and then they can report back to us, I'm assuming?
What would you want to report back on?
Well, just regarding the question that I asked, so how, in terms of.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, so what's going to be the physical manifestation of
Yes.
this conservation easement?
Right. I would be happy to report back on
Okay.
that when we find out.
Find out more.
Would this come back to us, though?
I mean, not technically, it'd just
not
be an
gonna come back to
information
us.
item. I mean, if we're approving something that, I always want to know, okay, here's the beginning, what's the end? So how does, what is the actual effect if we do this, so then what happens to it? I guess that's my question is, so they said that they're going to be talking about it during the development process, so it could just be a city manager update information. That's really all I had.
That seems outside of normal protocol for a public hearing and something that I think our decision is based on, is tonight. And that closes the matter once the hearing is closed and we make a decision, so.
We'll make a decision, it's just information.
Ms. Turway, do you have anything else?
I do not. If the commission wishes to get follow-up through a different venue, I'd be happy to include something on a Friday highlights when we learn later about the follow-up for you.
Okay, so with that, I'm going to close the public hearing.
I'm sorry, hold on. I just want to make sure, does the applicant have something more to say during the public hearing?
I do not. Kelly or Jennifer, do you have anything to add?
Okay.
I do not have anything to add, but thank you. This area will be treated as it is meant to be treated, and we will ensure with future planning that this area is delineated from the improvements we will be doing to the property.
So now we will close the public hearing.
Sorry about
We will open and close about 3 times tonight. Any further discussion?
No, I move that we approve and accept the easement for Township 3, Range 2 East, Section 9C, Tax Lot 200 along Myers Road.
Second.
Okay, Commissioner Rocky Smith,
Aye.
Commissioner Denise McGriff,
Aye.
Commissioner Frank O'Donnell,
Aye.
Commission President Rachel L. Smith,
Aye.
and the motion passes.
All right, so we're moving on to general business. This is item 7A about the temporary shower trailer at Milner Veterinary Hospital. Mr. Conkle?
Thank you. Evening, Commissioners. So tonight is an update on the temporary shower trailer at Milner Veterinary Hospital. This was brought before the commission. I'm sorry, I'm reading the wrong side. This was brought before the commission for approval of the temporary shower location, and during that meeting, the commission requested that representatives from Love One provide an update at the December 2nd, 2020 meeting on the activities that have occurred on the site. So we did provide a preliminary attachment with information related to the events and the attendance, and that was supplemented by additional information provided by Love One as it relates to the interactions that they've had with the neighborhood association, as well as some of the volunteer efforts that they've seen from residents in the area associated with that. So we do have Ms. Johnson available to provide the update to the commission, unless somebody, a commissioner has a question for me before we begin.
I don't believe so. I think we can go to Ms. Johnson.
Thank you, Commissioners. In our report that we submitted, there's an analysis of the number of showers and the growth that we've seen at the event. We reported back on September 16th. We completed October with the 2 shower events per month, and in November we moved to every Sunday. We've seen a consistent increase in the number of showers that we're providing, as well as additional wraparound supports. COVID has put a little bit of a wrench in us being able to get on site some of the additional supports we'd like to see, like LEAD and behavioral health and some other groups and organizations who have offered to work with us because they're simply not going out in the community and doing as much personal contact, but that is still on our agenda and we're working toward that. The max number of showers we can do in a 3-hour event is 18, and we've been running about 14, and that's a pretty comfortable number. We've had sufficient volunteers at every event, and we have served, in addition to some unhoused neighbors, we've been able to provide some supports to some families and single individuals who live in the neighborhood and walk over or drive over and access some of the hygiene supplies and other supports that we offer. And a few of those folks have come back to volunteer with us.
Perfect. I will start out by saying I really appreciated the updated report, all of the details, the number of people, the number of showers. I commend what you're doing, and I think you're doing a really great job for our community. And I think the turnout and the support from the surrounding neighborhood is also speaking volumes about the quality of service that you're providing, and that it's staying in check and not causing any problems for that would come back to us. And so I just want to say how much I appreciate the detailed update and the work that you're doing. I did have one question, and then I'll open it up to others. I'm unsure of why the recommendation is for Love One to come back to us in May of 2021. So is Love One planning, is the plan to provide showers throughout winter, or are we done for now and this is coming back in May? I'm a little confused.
So
we plan to continue with permission of the commission, and I believe Mr. Kunkel was asking that we just not have to check in again until May, but correct. I'm sure he can clarify.
Correct. So the currently Love One is approved by the commission while we're under the emergency situation that we're in with COVID, and until typical social service providers are able to get to pre-COVID capacities. So honestly, that's what I was checking. I want to make sure I had the right date. I didn't know if the commission wanted another update in 3 months. I put May 19th would be the second meeting in May. It was more of whatever the commission is comfortable with, whether they want it sooner, if that's appropriate, or they don't need an update until a later date or at all.
Gotcha. Okay, that's helpful. I was not clear of what was happening there. Questions or comments by other commissioners?
Yes, thank you, Commissioner Lyle Smith. Yeah, I don't have any objection to May, and I was aware that, yes, that's why we talked about being able to approve this, because we are under COVID situation, and we absolutely have no idea if it's going to, May 31st is all ending. I doubt it, but it's just good for us to have a check-in, I think, and that was one of the comments that I heard back from the neighborhood association, was that they support periodic check-ins, and I don't think it hurts anything. I think it gets the information out to the public the public can see what we see, and I think it's a benefit all around, and it's a good sort of a public relations tool in a lot of ways. I also want to thank Brandy for updating the report. It's complete. The report is complete now in my estimation, and it just, again, goes to show that having open communications with your neighbors really does help and work, and I'm really happy to see that people in the neighborhood have been helping out, because that's fantastic. So thank you for that.
Yeah, no, I agree with everything that's been said, and I have no problem continuing this on.
Commissioner O'Donnell, do you have any comments?
Nothing further. I like the way it's worded. A firm check-in date is good, or when we return to pre-COVID conditions, whichever occurs first, and I don't see that occurring before May, so it's, sounds workable to me.
Okay, do we have any citizen comments?
Yeah, we do. We have Brian Shaw, and I'm going to ask you to unmute your phone now.
Brian, are you there?
There he goes.
Commissioners.
There you go. Name and city for the record.
Good evening. It's Brian Shaw, Oregon City. Good evening, commissioners.
Good evening.
First of all, yeah, are we on?
Yes, you're on.
Okay, well, I wanted to congratulate Commissioner O'Donnell and Commissioner McGriff for their selection back onto the committee there, onto the commission, and look forward to your work there. But I wanted to speak a little bit tonight about Brandy Johnson, who you just been hearing about. That she started with us on the Homeless Coalition Committee, Oregon City Homeless Coalition Committee, a few years ago. And then, of course, it turned into the County Coalition Committee, and she was still with us. And then one day she decides, you know what? What if I started my own little program here called Love One? We said, well, that's fine, and then, well, I want to help do the laundry for the homeless people. And we're sitting there, okay, well, that's an interesting concept too. So, and she started that. So now she has this the Love One laundry system that's in Milwaukee, and I'm probably going to get this wrong, Brandy, but it's in Milwaukee and Molalla. Yes, was in Oregon City. We're trying to get that back here. And then that was so successful, she decided to try this Love One showers. And she managed to corral 3 chapters of the Rotary to finance this shower cart. And believe it or not, she has 8 to 12 volunteers at a time helping with the showers. Not only with the showers, but with the laundry event that she had last night. I don't know how many she had there last night, but people show up and help this community, and not only us, but also Milwaukee too. So it's all part of our homeless program here in Oregon City that, if anybody asks you about the homeless conditions in Oregon City, you can say, well, we do have our problems like everybody else. But we're doing something about it here, and thanks to Brandy, she's got the showers and the laundry. When I was on commission, we put in the Arta potties, and we had an intergovernmental agreement with the county for mental crisis management. And now Chief Band, he's put his homeless liaison officer in, and then now he's working on a mental health specialist. So we're doing our part, and I think and it's hard to tell whether it's successful or not, but I don't see things getting worse in the community. I guess that's what I can say. And when this all started here, 5 years ago, when we started this homeless committee now to begin with, I always said, I want to accommodate these people, but I do not want to encourage the lifestyle. Like if we do these programs, are we just going to get bus loads of people out here in Oregon City to take advantage of these programs? And I don't see that. What I see is very happy homeless people
getting their shower and just thankful that they're getting that, and also getting their laundry done just once, every couple of weeks. My gosh. So I want this city to be proud of where we're at with our homeless situation here, and also with Brandy Johnson. You're probably going to see her more often in this community now. So hang on. So anyway, thanks, folks.
All right, thank you,
Thank
Mr.
you.
Shaw. Ms. Riggs, do we have anyone else? No. All right. We need a motion?
I don't, if there's consensus
There's general
amongst the commission to
consensus.
bring this back as proposed, I don't think we need anything
I
else.
think we're good. All right. Thank you, Brandy. Thanks for coming and giving us the update.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Keep up the good work. All right, so we're going to move on to item number 7B, which is a resolution updating the guidelines for transportation impact analyses. Ms. Turway.
Thank you very much. I'm just going to share my screen. So I'm going to give you a brief presentation tonight, and then we'll talk about the next steps sort of at the end. But essentially, I'm going to ask for continuance, but I just want your input on it before I come back. So before we get into the details, I just want to talk a little bit about how transportation is analyzed in the city. So we look at it through many different lenses and layers. Those pictures are supposed to be lenses. So when we do our transportation system plan, we look 20 years out. We did in 2013, and we looked out to 2035. And in those cases, we assume every single property in the city will develop, and those that can redevelop will. And then we put it in a transportation model, acknowledging that we get traffic that doesn't start or stop in Oregon City, and we run a model and we see which intersections are too busy or don't meet our level of busyness that we expect, and where improvements need to be done. And that's how we create our transportation system plan. That creates a list of projects, and we know that a lot of those projects then get funded through STCs or system development charges. After we do this big picture study, which is supposed to get at the death by 1,000 cuts, these little improvements that maybe aren't captured in bigger studies, we tend to do additional studies as development occurs. So when annexation happens, we look at the change and the impact to our transportation system from what a property was, perhaps in the county, to what it is in the city. And the same thing with the zone change. If you get a zone change to a more intense development, we'll look at it then. And then as we get down to having more specificity about what the development is itself, then we can do an even more detailed analysis. This presentation tonight is about the policy behind how we do those analysis. So what is in these studies, and how do we conduct these studies? The studies are done by transportation engineers, and as you've seen, they're very technical. They look generally at what is the volume of traffic that proposed development is going to create, and what is the impact on our transportation system of that? Is it causing intersections to fail? Is there a site distance issue that needs to be remedied? And when we do those, we look at not just the immediate area. When we go through it, we'll look at intersections off-site as well. What we're working on with this policy is not including any criteria for any development review, which is why you're looking at it in this venue and not through a legislative process. We're not changing how much traffic is acceptable or what the standards are for development. It's just us looking at what needs to be in this study. I want to acknowledge that there are two types of transportation studies. There's a transportation analysis letter and a traffic impact study. What's in each of those is a little bit different in that we're acknowledging that maybe there's small development that occurs that doesn't need a full-blown study. It could be a really, really small addition or something like that. There's provisions in the policy that identify when we need to do which type of study. So I'm just going to go through real quick a couple of items that are included in the studies when we do transportation analysis. And so we'll have to take a look at existing conditions and also background conditions. So aside from what traffic is like today? Is there other stuff that's in the queue that's been approved but not built? What are the growth assumptions as well? In addition, we'll take a look at when development is built in the future. What are those trip generations? How are they distributed throughout the city? How do they affect different circulation, and how are people not backing into the streets? So there's a variety of things that we'll take a look at through these studies. There's a lot of data that gets reviewed and calculated through these studies. This small point font list is just a selection of it. So in each of the studies, that's why they're so long and they make your packets hundreds of pages, is because they include the traffic count summary sheets, the traffic data, the queuing analysis, the light analysis, things like that. And the purpose of that is to put the data out there so that there is an opportunity for the public to review. Our transportation studies have been conducted. They're conducted by a private party, a licensed engineer, and then we review them as a second set of eyes. And so we have a transportation engineer that we consult out. We use John Ripplinger of Ripplinger and Associates, and we've been lucky enough to have him on staff for more than 20 years. So he's familiar with the city and with different development that's been approved and some of those conditions and how they relate to future development. Planning division is the one that provides oversight to this, and there's also input from our engineering division. The city engineer is listed as responsible for this as well. And then we talked about the community having an opportunity to look at these, because every time we do a traffic study, it goes through some type of community review process. None of these happen just over the counter without the community there. So for the proposed revisions, we're really just looking at really minor amendments. So we have this document that was old. Since then, we updated our transportation system plan. That's now been since 2013, but we never updated this document. And we also have made some code changes. So the proposed revisions, these are a majority of the revisions include code references. There's a place in this document where we have listed our transportation system plan goals. So now they're new, since we have a newer transportation system plan. As you recall, we adopted alternate mobility targets. And so some of the references to how much congestion is allowed had changed in our code, and we needed to update that. We also added a reference to multimodal transportation, which is what is in our transportation system plan. It recognizes biking and walking as well as transportation and driving. There's some exemptions that we added for accessory dwelling units and lot line adjustments, saying that those don't need to do these traffic studies, and that's because policy-wise we haven't been doing it, and they also don't have a large impact. Their impact is captured underneath that TSP analysis we talked about earlier. Other revisions include adding a qualification for the engineer to be certified in Oregon. Right now it's just a requirement that it's a certified engineer. And then we added a requirement to show driveway width and spacing and site obstructions. The other change that's of note is that they have to provide an analysis of crash history. It's one of the items that we look at, and we changed it from 3 to 4 years. So tonight, I'm going to request a continuance, even though the agenda asked for approval. And the reason I'm doing that is because I had gone to the Planning Commission, because they're the ones that review these sometimes. Sometimes it's staff and sometimes it's the Planning Commission. And they did not have any comments to pass on to the City Commission, by the way. But I didn't go to the Transportation Advisory Committee. And the reason I didn't is because they don't actually review these. But it was brought up to me today, and it seems like a pretty good idea. So I would like a continuance, if that's okay, so I can swing it by the TAC. And then since I'm coming back, I wanted to understand any questions or concerns and write them all down so we can go take a look at it and come back to you hopefully with the final product. And that is all I have. We do have John Riplinger, our consultant here as well.
Okay, are there any questions?
And the lovely John Lewis.
Excuse me?
I said, and the lovely John Lewis is there too.
That's right.
So I'll start since everybody's still kind of, I think, looking at the document. So one item that I emailed Ms. Turway about, and I am interested in input from the commission. If I always look at the red line version because it helps me see what all the changes have been. And in section 2.4, it talks about the responsibility and authority for the city, and it actually says that throughout this document, the city engineer is the person, the individual with authority. And if you read through the document, you will see it references the city engineer all the way through it. And so it says in here, the added language was that whenever you see city engineer, it should be taken to mean that the city engineer or his or her designee, including but not limited to designated staff or city consultant. And my first glance at that, I just thought it was a little light, just because I feel like the city engineer position has a lot of responsibility and is a credentialed employee by being a registered professional engineer. And because they're reviewing a technical document, I kind of felt like that same qualification should apply to any person that reviews these in order to make sure that, you know, I mean, if you were to hand me a very technical report and I'm not an engineer, I don't know that I would be able to provide a good quality review of it because I'm not educated in that area. And so that was just where my mind went. It wasn't that we're not necessarily doing that. I believe the response from Ms. Turway was that, well, the consultant we use, which is on the line, he is credentialed, you know. And so it's not a comment that we're not doing that. It's more that if we're updating this language because it hasn't been updated in 10 or 15 years, should we just do a good job or maybe put a little bit more of a requirement in here or acknowledgement that our review is going to meet a certain level of technical expertise in the review. And so that was just one thing that I wanted to mention to the commission and provide feedback or get input.
No, I totally agree with you. The ultimate responsibility lies with the city. And we're the ones that are putting our name on the signature line that we've approved it, disapproved it, whatever, and it needs, that is part of our responsibility. So I don't have any problem with that. I'm not seeing us transferring our authority to anybody that's outside of the city, so.
Commissioner O'Donnell?
Yeah, I'll have an additional question, but first I'd like to say I'm totally supportive of Commissioner Lyle Smith's position on the matter. I just feel like I don't want a mechanical engineer, even though he may be a PE, commenting on traffic. That's a very specialized field. We all know that traffic causes the community the greatest heartburn. And quite honestly, in the 4 years that I've been sitting up here, I've never seen us disagree with an applicant's traffic report. And I question that. And then you talk about failed intersections if they're 1.0, and they'll talk about, well, it's at a 9.98. It's like, wow, that's some precision measuring. So I truly believe that our expertise needs to be at least the equivalent of the applicants. So I'll definitely support you on that point. Second point I have is a question I can direct to Ms. Turway at your convenience.
Okay. I will say that I want to make sure Mr. Replinger, I'm sorry if I've messed up your last name, but my comment is not a slight on you. I have pretty full confidence that you are credentialed and that we've been using you for 20 years because you have the expertise to do the work. So it's more that if we're taking the time to review a document that's 10 or 15 years old and we're updating it, can we make it reflect our desires and our intent and our how we've been doing it. So, Commissioner O'Donnell, did you have something else?
Yeah, it's just a curiosity, and I'll direct the question to Ms. Turway. I noticed that we've always said in the past that as an intersection approaches failure, when that developer who finally drives it to failure, he assumes like total responsibility for what's happened. And anything that precedes that seems to escape without any consequence. And then I look at the two types of reports that are required, depending on the magnitude of the development, the size, and its impact on traffic. And one is the transportation impact study, which supposedly, if it has that, is for larger developments with an impact. And the second one is a transportation analysis letter. And the example given is like, well, 24 or fewer residences are constructed. And my question is, when someone comes in, and I'll use the numbers from the report, say they're going to build a development of 96 residences, and they're going to phase it in. Is it even, say, 4 phases of 24 each? Are they evaluated on the totality of the 96, or are they evaluated on the phases?
I'm gonna let John answer this, and then I can take, if there's anything left over at the end.
Which John?
Riplinger,
Yes.
John Riplinger, the one doing the work, sorry.
Okay, thank you, commissioners. The short answer is that if someone comes in with an individual subdivision of 24 units, they will prepare a traffic analysis letter and be done with it. If they come in with a 96 unit development to be implemented in phases, they would do a study based on the totality of it with individual analyses showing the impact from each phase. But as Ms. Tyrway explained, we have the transportation system plan, which has evaluated the overall build out of the community and that area. So we're getting it both ways, broad scale and then small scale, either depending upon the developer's specific development procedures and plans.
So if they were going to build and we realize that at the 4th phase they drive an intersection of failure, how would we handle that?
Well, under that circumstance, we would likely know at the beginning of the process, if they came in with a phase development plan for 96 units, we would put conditions of approval for each individual phase if they were appropriate. So we might have a condition of approval that related to only the 3rd phase or to the 4th phase. So we do try to do that, and we do collect the systems development charges that helps us bring the projects up. And then we also have some of the specific examples of requiring a special assessment to pay for individual projects, or the potential for reimbursement district if the developer implements a project first at the beginning and then is reimbursed by others who come along later. So all of those are tools that are available for the financing of projects.
It was very informative, thanks. And did I understand that they were coming in with a 4-phase 96 house development, that they would in fact submit a transportation impact study?
Yes, they would.
Okay, very good. Thank you, sir.
Any other questions?
I have no.
Yes, I think that there needs to be a little bit of clarification, and Laura can clarify that. I believe that it's my recollection from Planning Commission that if the city surmises that somebody is trying to, let's just say, maybe evade the full transportation analysis by coming in piecemeal, the city can require them to do shadow plat to show what it could possibly be down the road. Is that correct?
That is correct. We require shadow plats for all developments, just to see how they're gonna fit with their neighbors.
Right, so Mr. Commissioner O'Donnell, I don't think anybody's gonna get away with anything by trying to skirt the rules.
Yes, and commissioners, I would also point out that as written in the guidelines, consistent with what we are currently doing, is that the allowing a developer of a small unit to come forward with a traffic analysis letter is an option. We do have the authority under the code and the existing guidelines, as well as the proposed guidelines, to require a full-blown analysis, even though it's a fairly small project. If there are particular circumstances that make it desirable for us to require the developer to do a more careful analysis because of the impacts of the project due to its location, crash history, and other factors.
So a perfect example of that small, located very close to an intersection that was already on the verge of failure, you might drive them to fill out a transportation impact study instead of the letter.
That is correct.
Understood, thanks.
Okay, so I don't believe there's any more comments.
Sorry, but there are.
Oh.
I'm sorry.
Commissioner
I'm
McGriff?
gonna try to be expedient in my comments. I've had conversations with, Mr. Lewis and Ms. Turway about some of my concerns. And I guess I'll start, on, section 1.1, where it says transportation planning and transportation impact analysis. So my overall comment is that although those 1 through 10 or 1 through 8 are adopted from the transportation system plan, some of the language is a little bit unclear, and while I understand that this is going to be used primarily by professionals, we've got neighborhoods who will be taking a look at these things if they want to comment on analyses. So I would like to suggest some of the language be a little less wonky. For instance, when I was reading number 8, it said compliant, and I said, compliant, okay. Comply with state and regional transportation plan. I don't know if compliant is, maybe that's not the best word. It was kind of unclear. Fundable, identify solutions for funding to meet systems needs. I'm assuming you mean transportation systems needs, and you set up in the top transportation facilities, but would somebody know that? Convenient and available. Number 6, increase convenience and availability of pedestrian, bicycle, and transportation modes. So are we trying to increase the access for those modes or just the availability? So that was a question I had for that. 2.2, some of the content of the impact analysis generally. So second bullet is what on-site and off-site transportation improvement will be necessary to accommodate the proposed development. And then third bullet, how it will access, affect, et cetera. So what I'm concerned about, and Mr. Replinger knows this from my 8 years on the Planning Commission, I don't think we do a good job of looking at what the downstream impacts are, and I use the word downstream, so adjacent roadway systems. And the example I used this afternoon was, we've got a development up on Central Point Road, but we know that we only have 3 ways to get down the hill, 213 Washington Street 7th and 5th. And those neighborhoods coming through there get impacted. They're never looked at in these transportation analysis. So all of a sudden, you've got all this pile of traffic coming up from the hilltop, coming down because we don't have any other options. So that's a concern that I have. My other question has to do with why are we exempting all ADUs? I think in some circumstances, we need to take a look at ADUs depending on where they are in the city. I know we haven't had a landslide of applications for these, but we may in the future. And I think some neighborhoods are going to deserve more a look by the planning staff of what the impact of the ADU, whether it's 1, whether they put 2, areas that are already constrained with limited off-street parking, those sort of things, they're going to impact the neighborhood. And I think that maybe on a case-by-case basis, they should be looked at. If they don't have any impact based on what the staff sees, fine. If they do, what are we doing about it? We don't want to be telling our community, oh yeah, this person can build 3 ADUs in their backyard and there's not going to be any impact on the neighborhood. Some of the stuff I'm hearing out on the street. Basically, I thought the process and procedures were fine. Establishing the scope of work was great. The letter analysis content, again, it's dealing with some of those downstream impacts. Other than that, I, like Commissioner Lyle Smith, read the red lines first, and then I read the full document. So that's generally what I had in my notes. I thought that the summary of the proposed draft was really good. I could go back and forth between the document and looked to see where you were making the changes and what you weren't making changes on. So all in all, other than just the questions that I had, thank you.
Ms. Turbay, do you have any comments now, or you're just gonna come back?
I think she can come back.
I can come back with responses, to
Okay.
those.
Sounds good. So with that, is there a motion?
I'd like to move, we continue this item to, did you say January, was it 16th? 6th.
Second.
Commissioner Rocky Smith,
Aye.
Commissioner Denise McGriff,
Aye.
Commissioner Frank O'Donnell,
Aye.
Commission President Rachel L. Smith.
Aye. All right, so we're moving on to the item that was pulled from the consent agenda, which was 8H.
Thank you, staff.
This was the revocable permanent right-of-way obstruction permit for property located at 122 Terrace Avenue. Mr. Lewis had to know this one might get pulled with all these conversations. Commissioner McGriff, you want to pull it? Do you have questions?
Yes, Mr. Lewis, I guess here's my fundamental angst, and I use the word angst. I read through everything, and thank you, it was very, very thorough. What I got hung up on was the fact that the applicant was notified at a particular point in the timeline, continued to put the fence up even though they were notified that they shouldn't be putting the fence up. And now they're coming back and saying, can we keep the fence even though, according to the documentation, they were notified that they shouldn't have put the fence up. I have a heartburn when we have action and then we get asked for forgiveness later. And I know you're not going to try to defend them or whatever, but it stood out like a sore thumb to me.
So,
And I don't think there's an answer.
yeah, I think that seemed like more of a statement than a
It's,
question.
yes, so that's my angst about this.
Well, I agree. I had the same angst, because I did the same thing. I read the timeline. I was like, wait a minute, they were told to stop and to address it, and yet they continued on, which is very frustrating. And
Very.
then there was a line in their first letter or email to the city, that was really interesting, because they essentially said, these things are permanent and they just can't be removed. And I was like,
Yeah, they can.
well, that kind of flies in the face of the fact that it's a temporary or a revocable right-of-way permit.
We do have the applicant on the line, if the commission so chooses, to direct questions there, or you don't have to. It's certainly at your discretion.
I mean, I will say, I completely understand how someone could purchase a piece of property, not be aware of a large right-of-way, the seller telling them and showing them that they are using a piece, a piece of land that's adjacent, to their actual property. So I can completely understand how they would have been very surprised to hear that it was actually right-of-way, public right-of-way. So I just want to say I'm empathetic with that. I do understand there was just a couple of pieces to this that did just kind of cause me a little pause. I will agree. I will say at the end of the day, if you look at the map that shows the property lines for the multiple houses along that street and how those property lines are practically at the edge of their roof, in some cases, like literally, and they're all using it as driveway or places to park their cars. I just don't see how we can, as much as there were things about this process of how how the process happened that are frustrating. I just don't see how we could not grant this. So that was kind of my thought process and where I landed. I'm just kind of sharing since I started. Are there any other? Commissioner O'Donnell or Mr. Lewis?
I don't have a lot to add to that. I think you have a good understanding of the situation. I just need to clarify. Remember that our GIS mapping has it's an approximation. This is why we asked the property owner to produce a flat map, and they shared with us the actual kind of distances from that. So I want to acknowledge that because that's become an issue. You know, other than that, I don't disagree with anything that I've heard. I think, you know, the subjectivity of what the fence looks like, I struggle with a little bit, but you know, it is pretty transparent, but yet, it is what it is. And I think it's up to the city commission at this point to grant it or not. We didn't feel strongly enough about the facts to not make this recommendation. It's revocable. I understand that the property owner is well aware of that. And if we need access in that area, it really isn't too much of a lift to remove it.
So would code enforcement review whether or not the fence type was compliant with code while at the same time they were dealing with the right of way? Because Mr. Lewis made the way he made that statement made me think about the type of fence that perhaps it didn't meet code. I'm not saying that he said that, but that was where my mind went.
I asked my staff to look into that, and the fence is compliant.
Okay. Does anybody want to hear from the applicant?
I do, please.
Okay. And what's the applicant's name? Is that
Susan Enright, I believe you're on the phone.
Or it says Angela.
Yes, I am.
Can you start?
Hi, Commissioner.
Yeah, can you start by stating your first and last name and city of residency for the record?
Sure, Susan Enright, Oregon City, Oregon.
Commissioner McGriff, do you have questions for her?
No, did you, Ms. Enright, did you hear my angst?
I did.
So, do you have any response to me on this? Please.
Other than we were already well into the project by the time we found out.
I think they already had fence posts that were in concrete by the time, when I look at the pictures and the dates of it, like it was already in the process of being erected.
Like I said, I'm not trying to cause you any harm or ill will. I just get a little angst because, you know, knowledge is power, so to speak. Is the fence the only thing that's in the right of way, or are those planters and the other things still there? I don't have a problem with people parking, using it for parking. Is there anything else that's in there in the right of way? I did not take a site visit because there really wasn't a good way to do it without being unobserved. So I did not come down your street. I used the maps. So is the fence the only thing that's in the right of way?
Currently, yes.
Okay.
But we would like to put the planters out there as well.
Well, yeah, okay, all right, thanks. Appreciate it.
Of course.
Commissioner O'Donnell.
The applicant, understanding that it is a revocable right-of-way and anything you put there can be removed. Do you have any plans to put anything else there other than the fence and planters? Do you have any plans for a garden shed or anything like that?
No, we don't. It's a yard currently with grass, and that's the way we would like it to stay.
Much like Commissioner McGriff, I struggle with people that proceed. I've purchased my property. The documents I get show right-of-ways, and you're saying your documents never showed that when you purchased it.
They did not. No mention of the right-of-way whatsoever.
So, you know, you'll see a dotted line that says right-of-way. Okay. All right. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so since we pulled this from the consent agenda, I believe we would need to have a motion to approve it. Or any motion at this point.
Well, I'm going to go ahead and move that we approve the revocable permit for the purposes of fencing. And that's going to be my motion.
Ooh, I don't think our permits can have caveats on them.
Oh, I don't know. It says approve the request for the sole purpose of fencing and residential recreational uses. I don't know what residential recreational uses. I mean, you can put your lawn chair out there. So I'm just looking at the staff recommendation.
Knowing that the applicant would like to put a flower box or two
Yeah.
in the right of way, is the commission acceptable to that? Or if we're gonna be specific,
Can they be removed?
yeah, I think.
I mean, can they be picked up and, I mean, when you put dirt in a planter box, it gets pretty dang heavy. So I don't know whether they can be, are they removable?
It's less heavy than fence posts and concrete. So they're all removable.
Well, I will go ahead for the sake of moving the meeting along, say that they can have that and go with that.
So fence posts and planter
Yeah.
boxes.
Yes,
I will
but there
second.
better not be anything else.
Second.
Can we put stipulations on a permit like that?
Yes, we can.
It's the city's right of way.
So just keep them, so there's fence posts. I think they've got some boulders along the shoulder of the road.
Mm-hmm.
And, the recreational uses is my language. I'm trying to just articulate that, yeah, all the neighbors along the street have landscaping, and that's kind of what this is. So we could identify it as landscaping features, if that, and we can condition the permit to be that way.
Call for the question.
Okay. Commissioner Rocky Smith.
Aye.
Commissioner Denise McGriff.
Aye.
Commissioner Frank O'Donnell.
Aye.
And Commission President Rachel Lyle Smith.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Thank you, Ms. Enright.
Okay.
That is the last one of those I'm approving. I'm not doing this again. It made me crabby.
All right, do we have a motion on the consent agenda?
I'd like to move we approve this consent agenda.
Second.
Ms. Riggs?
Yes. Commissioner Denise McGriff.
Aye.
Commissioner Rocky Smith.
Aye.
Commissioner Frank O'Donnell.
Aye.
And Commission President Rachel Lyle Smith.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Thank you, Ms. Riggs. We'll move to item number 9, which is communications. City Manager Conkle,
Nothing for tonight, thank you.
anything from our commission?
No.
I can't think of
Nope.
anything.
No? Okay.
Yeah, just,
We'll have committee report outs next week at
Yep.
work
Yeah.
session.
okay, I was just going to say that the League of Oregon Cities is going to be meeting on Thursday to approve the diversity, equity, and inclusion language into their whole system, which is kind of exciting. And they've also approved a new subcommittee called the Counselors of Color. So counselors, POCs, will be meeting on the first time on the 11th of December.
Okay, and, Commissioner Smith.
Sorry.
That's okay.
I just want to thank city staff for decorating downtown. No tree lighting event, but the tree is in Liberty Plaza and it looks really good. So it's nice to see the city employees turning downtown into Christmas. It's really nice down there. It looks really nice. So, support the businesses that are open down there. Stroll through downtown, even though we can't go to the tree lighting event this weekend, but you can go down and at least enjoy this. A lot of the store windows are decorated downtown. It looks beautiful, so.
Yeah, the boxes will be down there, and
Yes.
I had a great time on Saturday, the 28th, for Small Business Saturday, wandering up and down the street, throwing cash at businesses, except one business didn't want to accept any cash, which was really weird. So
Okay, and on that, we will move to executive session in, I would say, about 5 minutes, about a 5-minute break. And with that, we're adjourned.